sale.
Guess what?
John Robert Bell.
Is that what that is?
The lease thing.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome to our last meeting of July. The invocation tonight will be given by the Mayor Pro Tem Matt Horgan, and we will then go into respects to the flag. Please rise.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for letting us live in a free country. I pray for our nation that we may find unity instead of division. I pray for our city, our citizens, our city staff, our leadership team, and this council, that we would see strength and togetherness, that you would lead our electric city in a way pleasing to you and for the best interest for all of our citizens. Give us wisdom this evening at this meeting as we discuss and guide us to make quality decisions. In your name we pray, amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of our July the 11th meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have first by Mr. Newton, second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of July the 11th pass unanimously. We don't have any old business. And our first item of new business is request consideration of a contract for housing demolition. Mr. McEwen.
Our Plan and Development Department has put this together for you tonight. As you can recall, we allocate additional general fund expenses towards housing demolition among our neighborhoods, really targeting houses that don't qualify sometimes under CDBG guidelines or rules due to them being burned out or some other reasoning. So this allows us to be able to really come up with a list of needed houses. There's a lot out there, of course, that needs to. We have some, as you know, come online of just people moving out or house being burned down or so forth that will need attention. But we were happy to get many bids on this, and Maurice McKenzie will go over the request for it. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. And as Mr. McEwen mentioned, that housing blight in neighborhoods is a concern by the council, and you have allocated monies over last year's and this year's budgets to address that. And in fact, over the past 9 to 10 years, with monies you've allocated and along with CDBG money through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, Neighborhood Initiative Program, we've been able to tear down in excess of 100 houses in that 9 to 10 year period. So it's good to see that take place. And obviously there's more that we need to demolish. And so what you have before you tonight is a list of 12 houses that we would like to bring for you for consideration for demolition. And when we looked at these houses, we looked at a larger list, but we have a criteria looking at everything from housing condition, obviously, to the impact it has on neighborhoods, and also just getting the consent from property owners, which is important to do that. So this list of 12 houses meets all those criteria. And for the demolition process, it is a process. There's asbestos studies that need to take place. There's project designs if there is asbestos. So those pieces have been completed for these houses. And the staff, we solicited bids for the demolition and removal of the structures, and we did receive 5 bids. We had a public bid opening on July 7th, and you can see the 5 bids that we had, the low bid being Four Seasons Demolition at $102,100, Eagle Demolition, $112,076, Phillips Recovery, $131,470, Complete Demolition Services, $216,000, and Miller's Construction for $259,630. And not only does this include demolition, it includes debris removal and properly disposing material at a landfill. And also in the specifications in the bid package, we requested that each lot, once it's demolished, it's cleaned and left in a condition so we can maintain them moving forward. So those are the specifications for this. And again, money has been allocated in the general fund for these 12 houses, and we do recommend approval of a contract with Four Seasons Demolition out of Wilmington, North Carolina. They work mainly in North and South Carolina, and they've had several jobs in upstate South Carolina. And also they've conducted work with Anderson County in the past, a few jobs. And I've checked with Anderson County representatives, and they said they did quality work, and they would certainly use them in the future if it was possible for them. So again, we recommend Four Seasons Demolition out of Wilmington at a cost of $102,100 for the 12 houses.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Ms. Stewart?
I'd just like to have a comment, why, I always appreciate this council awarding additional dollars to tear down houses. And here's 12 houses that we're looking at tearing down, and as we always know, when you tear down 12, there's probably 20 more that crop up during that year. So, we're making a dent, but it keeps going higher and higher. And, while I approve this contract or make a motion that we approve it, I'd like to ask staff to explore what would it cost if we created within our Public Works Division a demolition crew that consists of maybe 2 truck drivers and a track hoe operator who could tear these down. Because when you're spending about $110,000 a year, you're looking at funding 3 positions. We have trucks, we have equipment. Our sewer department used to tear these houses down all the time for us, and just didn't know if it would be a bigger bang for our buck going forward, that if we had a crew and 3 dedicated people that would tear down houses in the city, if you tore down 1 house a week, then you could tear down 52 houses in a year versus tearing down 10 houses for the same amount of dollars. So I would just ask staff if we could explore going forward what those costs would look like and bring back to council so that we could see, if it would be beneficial to us or not. Because I think there may be a way, even we could partner with the county about helping with the tipping fees, how we could get a bigger bang for our buck to get more houses torn down in the city, because we are, again, houses are cropping up. There's so many houses in the Alphabet Street that needs to come down, and on the west side, south, there's just so many houses, and I just think that there've got to be a better way to be more effective with the dollars that this council is allocating each year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make a motion that we approve this contract for Four Seasons for $102,100 and ask the staff to explore those other options and see if there's a better way we can do this.
I'd like to.
We'll have a first for the motion of approving the contract.
A second.
Second by Dr. Thompson. Discussion.
Okay. And Tony, I'm looking at this 12 houses here. There's probably 24 more just in the same condition or worse in my area. And between your area and my area, just lots. So those 12 will make a little difference. But gosh, I'd just like for some of my fellow council members to ride through these areas sometime and just see the number of houses that are falling in, having a terrible impact on the neighborhood, and figure out a way. Your way sounds good, but figure out some way we can make a bigger dent. I don't know about the federal funding that we have that to tear down houses, I don't know where that money is or how it fits in here, but it's really a problem.
It is.
It's a problem. When you look around, now I know that we are annexing and we're rebuilding to build up our city to make it look good, and I agree with that. But there are certain areas in our communities that we really need to give more attention to when it comes to substandard housing. Houses that I ride down Dora Drive, those houses falling in. Nobody can live there. It makes the whole community look bad. Matt, I know you and John know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do. You have you look the whole city. So your idea might be good, Tony. But there's got to be a way that we give more attention to these substandard houses.
I agree, Dr. Thompson. You know, one year, you know, we got the National Guard to come in to help us out of Columbia, you know, tear down a bunch of houses. And, but, you know, if you know, not only the price that we're funding tonight, but we also pay probably how much Maurice to do the lead abatement, another $2,500 to $3,500 a house on top of that, you know, for all the testing that we have to do before we tear it down. Would you guesstimate?
Yeah, the asbestos surveys for these properties and then the project designs. I don't have it in front of me, but it was pushing $20,000 for that.
And, you know, and we could continue to do that, but even if, you know, if you had an employee package, let's just say with benefits and all paying, you know, $50,000, $60,000 a year, you got 3 new employees, you know, that's what you're awarding here tonight. And they could work every day and be a city employee and tear down a lot more houses.
Oh, good ideas. Great ideas. Any other discussion? Ms. Martinez?
Yeah, so Mr. McKenzie, I appreciate you making the comment about Four Seasons doing work in Anderson County, because that would have been my initial concern. Is I'm a little disappointed that we couldn't award this contract to a company that's here in South Carolina. I see we have 2 bids here from folks here in Anderson County themselves, but we do need to be, you know, responsible with the funds that we have, and I understand why we would award this bid to Four Seasons. I just think it's good for the council to know that I think there's a little more reputational risk involved when you get somebody that's a little bit more local. I realize Wilmington's not that far away, but, you know, it is 30% less than one of our local bids here. But that's something personally that I would have liked to see is maybe, well, we had 2 out of the 5 here from Anderson County, but I would have liked to have awarded somebody in state. But I am in agreement with the decision.
Good point. Any other discussion?
Real quick, will these properties come under, will we own these? Or are we just tearing down houses that somebody else owns?
Tearing down houses, somebody else owns property.
So we don't own the property, we're just cleaning up their property? Okay.
Any other questions?
Will
Mr.
there be a
Roberts?
tax lien for that amount placed on the property?
Are you planning on putting a tax lien on these?
We can. We have the ability to do that.
And you know, when we tear down these houses, and you leave the lot there to the owner, whoever it was, it becomes a nuisance also. Because that lot's there, nobody's building on it. Somebody next door doesn't want it because it's in bad shape. So I don't know what we do about that. You just tearing the house down and leaving the lot there. You still got a problem.
It becomes a benefit, obviously, for the person that owns the land. So I think putting a tax lien would make sense, but really it benefits the neighbors that are good tax-paying citizens, that we do clean up and take care of what we need to do. So I can see both sides of it, but I would be in favor of us making sure we exercise that tax lien if we can.
So with the conversation we're having, we put tax liens all the time on properties like this, but when they consent to it, where we were having trouble with saying, you know, with people, the process that we would have to go through if they didn't otherwise consent to us tearing it down, as part of the agreement usually with consent is that a lien won't go on it. So it's kind of a toss up there, or there's a longer, lengthier process to go through to force condemnation to tear it down.
Any other questions?
Frankie, how did Kathleen Kempe used to do it over in the city of Greenville? Because I know over in the city of Greenville, they went in when the houses were substandard, they wouldn't fix it up, the city just go in and condemn it, tear it down, take the property and leave it up to the judge to say, hey, here's what it was, it's your property, you know, one way or the other.
We've done that.
Will we not do that for these type of properties?
I don't know what this list is, but we have some that where we've gone through court and they didn't tear it down, we tear it down. I don't think any of these are like, are these all consents?
These are all consents.
These are all consents. But we just gone through,
I think,
changed the policy like back, if they'll consent us tear it down, we'll agree not to go through that process.
Yeah, I mean, we've done all all the different ways you can do it.
Well, I was gonna say, all good discussion. I think what I hear is we want to get more creative, when we can be creative, to demolish more houses and just for a lot of different things that were said and it was captured. So we had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Our next item is to request consideration of a contract for D.B. Walker Park Improvements Project. Mr. McEwen?
Okay, D.B. Walker Park improvements were identified, really before our recreation master plan in 2017, but they were identified in 2017 for improvements. Improvements that we've done so far from the rec master plan included a basketball court replacement in 2019, a new shelter in 2020, and then of course the capital improvement that we're proposing tonight. The recommendations from the D.B. Walker Park emphasis from the rec master plan really stated to look at, and this was part of the basketball court removal, was to relocate or remove the basketball courts to create a grassy area in the park, and you see that we've accomplished that around the shelter. And so really the next thing that's on the list is to upgrade the playground equipment, and we have that on order. It's actually arrived already, and Bobby Bevel will go over the land preparation request for you, which is before you now.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. We had, this is phase 2 of the D.B. Walker. In 2020, we added a picnic shelter, some ADA sidewalks, irrigation, landscaping. And you can see that shelter closest to Jefferson Avenue. That is there now. So we worked with Land Plan Group to develop a bid, and we created 2 alternate bids. One to do the additional shelter that you see on the other side of the playground, and do a parking area off Jefferson. As you know, at D.B. Walker, there's not very much parking. People park along Quarry Street, and it's very difficult to get in, so we ask in the bid to do the base bid, which was the playground area itself. And as Mr. McEwen said, the playground equipment is here. We've got it in 4 ocean containers sitting at the Rice Center site right now. So we had put this out to bid in May or April, and in the May 4th deadline, we did not have any bids for this project. So we rebid it, and we received 1 bid, Foothills Construction out of Clemson. So Foothills submitted a bid for the demolition, the earthwork, retaining wall, a drainage system underneath the playground, erosion control and seeding. Their base bid, which is the playground area only, was $256,123. The alternate 1 bid was for demolition, installation of sidewalks, gazebo pad, and the installation of a pavilion shelter. That price was $93,708. Alternate 2 was for the parking lot. This was for earthwork, concrete, a concrete sidewalk leading up to the shelter, along with paving and striping. That price was $128,667. So to do everything there, the total was $478,498. In checking with our finance department and Tamara Lindley, who's handling CDBG, to see if we had enough funds to do everything, we are able to do this entire package. And by adding the state-of-the-art equipment, as you remember, we approved the equipment in March, purchased it. The theme of this park is towers, slides, and so there's several climbing opportunities. There's poured in place surface, just like we have at B. Thompson. And I think this will transform that neighborhood. I think this will be a game changer for that area. And this is part of the East Side Recreation Plan, and this would be great to get this part done. So this is all a CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding, and Staff and Land Plan recommends awarding the base bid and both alternate bid of $478,498 to Foothills Construction. Foothills Construction is currently finishing up Kid Venture, the ADA playground at all-inclusive playground for the county that we're part of that. And they have just a few items left, and they're also doing the work behind the old courthouse. I talked with Glenn Brill. Their Foothills had no change orders in their work. The only change orders that came were the change of scope by the county. So that's one thing I've heard about Foothills, is that they do not submit change orders unless they absolutely have to.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Mr. Stewart.
Bobby, tell us a little bit about the DOT with the encroachment. You know, you coming off that Jefferson Hill and being able to turn in there. We work with DOT. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we submitted a encroachment permit. They looked at it and approved it. We've got to make sure we have enough room from the top of the hill down that people have opportunity to see coming out of there. But DOT was fine with it when they looked at the plans. And the parking lot is on for 10 spaces. And so it's not going to be that we'll have a ton of traffic going in there, but at least we'll have 10 cars that won't be parking on Quarry Street or on Market Street.
Now, where the DB Walker sign is going into where the driveway is, you got those huge trees, and this really creates a blind spot going up. And we're going to take those 2 trees out on both sides so that you can be able to see people if you're coming over the hill and going the opposite way as well.
Yeah, if you go over there, there's several large holly trees and trees that have been there for years that really need to be removed and start over with something that can be easily maintained. The sign on Jefferson has some large trees, does create a blind spot. I've talked with our horticulturists, and we've come up with a plan to remove those, but also come back with something that is manageable and looks nice also for the community.
Tell me a little bit about our security cameras, because we get all this put in. I would hate to have something happen, somebody vandalized, because we've had vandalism in the park before. Somebody burnt the shelter before. So what are the state of our camera systems in that general area?
Part of this, in this money allocated that we have for the park, is for lighting, and there will be lighting directly on the playground. It will be on each end, so it's not shining in other people's windows and stuff, because DB is a linear park. You got houses on both sides, so there will be lighting there and 2 cameras that will be looking right at the playground. So that's a big concern of mine, and we wanted to make sure that that was covered.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thompson.
Bobby, I know that I think you moved some of the basketball courts from D.B. Walker to place up at where Jim Rice area is. What's going to happen to that property up there where Jim Rice building was tore down?
Yeah, the conceptual plan for that was to put courts and a couple of ball fields and shelter restrooms up in that area. That will be one of the next projects that we look at, but we wanted to get the basketball courts out of this area, again, away from the playground, and so I think that's a great location for it. It's sort of away from activities in the park, but that's still on our list to get done.
Good idea.
Mr. Harvey?
Mr. Bell, so if I'm looking at proposed parking, that pavilion's already there, right?
Correct.
And this bid, do we already have this second pavilion, or is that included in the price?
The price is to purchase that shelter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the actual playground equipment is not in this price,
That is correct.
because we already bought it and it's in the containers. But this is to put the retaining wall and put that surface down that is now the popular surface. And since there was not a second bid or a third bid, are we comfortable with this price? I mean, $500,000 for a shelter, a retaining wall, 10 parking places. What am I missing?
I think you got it. We met with Brian Frazier from Foothills, and because we were concerned a little bit about the pricing. But again, after his explanation, we felt comfortable because to get his equipment in, he's going to tear up the current walking track that's there. That's the only way you can access this area. And this is one of the reasons that we really wanted to do the entire package, especially the additional shelter. If we just did the playground and came back later to do the shelter, we would have to tear up, I mean, the trucks and the stuff, because there's no way to get into DB Walker except off Jefferson. So he included that of repaving that area after he finishes, because he said his trucks and equipment would tear that up.
So the other thing, Mr. Harvey, that plays into this too, the fact that it's a CDBG project scares contractors away because they have to certify their payroll and their contractors, their subcontractors' payroll, which has been a problem in the past here and other cities. So a lot of them just won't even bid on it, which I suspect is the case here. Foothills has worked on these projects before, and they're not subcontracting anything out, so they can certify their payroll. And that's a very important piece of this. So we have to go do a field survey at the location randomly while they're doing work to certify that they're being paid properly according to CDBG guidelines, and that they're a certified employee. So.
Any other questions, guys?
So all of this funding comes from CDBG?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff Roberts?
More of a comment or two. My place of business is just a few blocks from here. I've traveled through here several times a day, and what this will do for this neighborhood. And I've seen this neighborhood from its very worst to what it is now, and just the transformation over the years that I've known it. And I'm 60 now. I've known it my entire life. So I welcome the project. You could also piggyback this on top of what's going on at Cleo Bailey, and I have high hopes for what they can do there. So what it does for this neighborhood is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real pretty area down there, it really
Right.
is.
And I am disappointed we only have one bid.
Well, a lot of that, we had actually called some of the people that we knew picked up plans, and they just could not work it in their schedule, or they didn't realize it was a CDBG project, and they hadn't ever done that, and they had to get a SAM's number and all this stuff. And especially if it's contractors that have subbed certain things out, and that's an issue. That's the great thing with Foothills, they do it all. There's no
And at
sub.
this point, it would be unfair to Foothills to rebid it because now their number is out. So
Correct.
we're kind of in a tough spot.
Yeah, the subs are a real problem for the other contractors for CDBG projects.
I know this is in Councilman Stewart's seat. I don't know if you want to.
But I just want to ask one other question. Bob, we had talked about there's a lot of drainage, around that last picnic shelter, how it stays real wet down there. Are they going to address all of that water as they come through there?
Yes, they're putting underground drains in that will actually go into the flume right there, but that's part of this bid. They're building a small retaining wall at the bottom of that hill, and they'll have drains that, I think there's 4 drains underneath that playground surface that all go across to the flume and drain out there, so yes.
Any other questions? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
First by Dr. Thompson, second by Mr. Lockridge. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
And by the way, the property there on, by the football field looks a lot better since we cut those trees down, Mr. Bell.
Yes, sir, it is. We're not done yet.
Thanks. Our last item of new business to request consideration of an ordinance authorizing the lease to real property generally known as Anderson Memorial Stadium. Mr. McEwen.
Okay, if you can recall, we recently spoke about this and the Anderson University's intention on renewing the lease. There were some changes that we want to make in this. Initially, going into it, there was some suggestions from the council on that, which has now been included in the lease. That was emailed out to you. And Frankie will go over those different changes.
Yeah, this is what we proposed to lease for 30 years to Anderson University to continue to use their baseball field. And we have been sharing the use of it for a while and sharing the expenses of it. This would give them the total obligation to take care of the maintenance expenses of it. And based upon the conversation we had with y'all, we included, I think I sent y'all a copy of the lease in paragraph 7 and 13, where we provided that, originally we provided that if they put some equipment and stuff in, they can take it with them when they leave. And this provides that at such time that happens, we would have the option to negotiate a price to buy those materials or equipment based upon what they paid for it and some depreciation over the years. So, and they, as far as we know, the team we've been speaking with are agreeable to that. They haven't run it by Evans yet, but I think they will be agreeable to this, and it's our recommendation that we lease it to them. And
it's first read. We have to have 2 reads on this.
Good. Any questions, comments on the contractual matter with the university, with the stadium?
I'd like to make a motion to approve it on first reading.
First by Mr. Stewart.
Second.
Second by Dr. Thompson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first reading. We do have an executive session. Mr. McEwen?
Request to go into executive session for 30-4-70A2 for the receipt of legal advice and other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege.
I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
First by Mr. Martinez, second by Mr. Harbin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand in executive session.
called the deep pocket principle.
We're out of executive session, a vote to come out of executive session, and in executive session, we heard a discussion in regards to legal advice relating to a pending claim covered by the attorney-client privilege, and at this time, there's no discussion in regards to that. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. John Roberts. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
We never had.